Alright, so check this out. In today's video, I'll be going over all of the steps for creating this trellis. Now, the idea was to share with you guys, those of you who are experienced or those of you who are fairly new with Grasshopper, techniques and exercises that can help you develop designs like this, and that way you can apply those to your own designs. So, let me show you what this is all about. It is an arch trellis that has square subdivisions. It also has some diagonals, and so I also made sure to have the dimensions here because this is something I do want to develop. So having the dimensions is critical for me to see, what sizes I would be using for a design like this. So if you want to see how it all comes together, I'll be going over all of the steps, but on my website you can download the script for free to see how it all comes together. And I also have other resources that can help you guys and also help support my work. So hopefully you're excited to learn how this is made. Like I said, go ahead and download the script to see how it all comes together. And let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, stay tuned and let's jump right into it. So the first thing we're going to do is bring in a point. So we'll go here to construct point. Then we'll bring in an empty point component. This way we can always change the location. All right, so now that we have this point, now we're going to be creating the arc. So what I'll do is I'll take this point and I will move it here in the X direction. So move. And then the vector is going to be unit X. And then I'll use a slider. So I'll say 60 here. And so now we have these 2 points. Now with these 2 points, we can create an arc using arc seed, starting here at the first point, and then ending here at the other point. Now the direction is going to be the direction in which the arc is created. Now we can change the vector, but we can also bring in just a unit Z, which means it's going to be created vertical like this. So this is going to be our base geometry. Now what I'll show you is now we need to subdivide this arc to create the subdivisions this way, and then we'll be actually creating a copy of those in the Y direction. So what I'll do here is I'll take this arc and we'll go here to divide curve. Now we can change the count here, so I'll go here to a slider. Now notice that we still don't have a line segment, so let's do that by creating a polyline that goes through all of those points. And when you have a polyline, it's actually a joined set of segments here that we can explode. So we can have them as individual line segments. And so we'll have 10 here. I'll disable the preview on the previous stuff here, and then even disable the preview on this one. Now we're going to be creating the next copy of this. So what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll move this in the Y direction. And we'll use a slider here. So we'll just go to 12. So now that we created one copy, now let's say we wanted to create a series of them. Well, what we can do is bring in a series component, use 12 as a step amount, and count as how many copies we want. So we'll just say 3. And then rather than using just one number, we can actually use 3 different numbers here. And as long as we graphed the motion input, we'll kind of get it working here and we can add more. So what we did is we created the initial spacing and then copied more. So we can just start with 2 and we can continue on adding more if we want to. All right, next is we copied just one of these line segments. Now what we need to do is move these points, these vertices, in the Y direction. So what we'll do is we'll move these points in the Y direction, and we'll step it by 12. So we won't use the series because we only need to use one move. And the reason for this is because we need to create the line segments between these points and the points we just moved. So we're creating the subdivisions ourselves here. So now if we, let's say, copy this more, well, now we can take this and copy this move, which has those. We'll just be using the same move, but for the segments that go across. So now we can do a few things. We can either array by 5 minus 1. Because obviously we do 1, 2, 3, 4, not 5. So what we'll do is copy the series component and the Y vector. We're going to subtract 1, so minus 1 for the count. So even if it's 6, minus 1. And now we'll move it using this one. So the reason why is because this creates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this one creates 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is working. Now for the next part, we need to create the diagonals. So what I'll do is I'll take this, I'll go to list item, and it picks the first ones here. So what I'll do is I'll pick list, and I'll go to add and add. Actually, I need to do that to this one, the first one. Not to all the copies, just the first one. Why? Because with these 3, now I can, actually I just need 2. Now I need to get the endpoints. For both of these, and now connect the start and end, or the other way around. And now as you can see, we've created one. Now if we want to create all of these, we need to know how many times we subdivided it. So it was 10. So now we're going to be creating a series of of numbers. We need 10 of them, stepping by 1. So now we have from 0 to 9, and we can use that as the index input. And what it'll do is it'll create all of these line segments, because it'll have a series of sets of them, where now with this being accounted for, we can copy this move component where we moved these, and now we can copy it and move across the diagonals. So what I'll be doing here is disabling the preview and everything else before, and seeing that we can increase more of these. We can increase the spacing and the subdivisions this way. We can also change them. Now, to know what the size of them are, one of the things I like to do is I actually put all of these together into one component. So I'll go to curve and plug all of these in, flatten the output, and now all of these, I like to go to line, dimension, and then we can change the size. So what you're seeing here is these are kind of small, so we can always go back here and change the spacing here. Yeah. Now the reason why I do this is because I'm actually going to be developing one of these, so I want to know the size. And so with this, I have a really good idea of how big they are and how I would develop it. And then I can take these curves and I can develop them in two ways. One is using pipe. I'll change the radius to 0.5 and then divide it by 2, because since it's a radius, I actually want this to be the diameter. And making sure that the caps are round. Now this is one way where it's pretty clean in the sense that everything is consistent, but we can also use sub-D multi-pipes and use the input of the same line segments. Now we can go change some of the inputs here. So strut size is going to be one of them. Let's see if we can decrease it. Looks like the connection part of it we can change with end offset. And lastly, the node size. Okay, so that gives you a really nice connection there. Now what's different about this is that this is one solid, so that's really good for if you're rendering it or if you're 3D printing. But if you are developing it, you would actually cut these out separately, so you would want them separate. Now the last thing I would say that I would want to show for this is when you cut this out, one of the issues that I would have is this. Let me move this out of the way. I actually need, because when you cut this, making sure that the angle between this one and this one is consistent, one way to do that is creating a diagonal from this one to this one, between this one and this one, But what would need to happen is it has to be an even number, because if I'm going to be skipping one, this way keeping the angle the same, then this is what we need to do. We now need to create that segment here all the way around, divided by 2. So the way we do that is the same way that we created these diagonals. We have to create the diagonals. I'll copy this down here. I'll actually be just doing one of them, and then I actually have to copy 3 of them here, so I can create one connection between the start point of this one and the start point of this one. So a line segment between these two. And now I could almost use the same index, but notice that it'll mess it up. Why? Because we have twice as many. So now I need to copy this down here, and the count will be divided by 2. Now the series will go into here, and we will step by 2. So if we divide by 2, then we step by 2. Now, if you're getting confused, you can go to my website and download this for free to see how it all plugs in. And also have other resources if you're interested in parametric design. All right, so I'm just cleaning this up a little bit. Why? Because now we need to move this over 1, 2, and 3. So now using this, we can copy that over and array it using the same series component that we used to array these arches. So these are the arches, and these are more of the connecting segments. And this creates a bit of a truss system. These will ensure that the angle between these two remain, and also these bolts and these connections actually have to be a little bit longer, because these diagonals and connections would actually be below the entire pattern here. So let's bring this back and actually plug that in to the input. And as the output, we have both this one and this one. And I plan to make these look something, let's see if we can, with a beam, and then maybe a post down here, some kind of structure like this, and something that would be copied over that way as well. And then be able to array it over and over. So that is the idea for this one. For now, let's take this. What I'd like to do is typically I hide the input for these, just so we don't have anything overlapping, and we can look at both of these as the outputs. So we'll go to custom preview and use a color picker Now let's see what it looks like with the other one. Very similar. Okay. So for now, I'll be cleaning this up and sharing it with those of you who are interested in, learning how this all came together. Like I said, I also have other resources that I can help you with. If you want one-on-one tutoring, that's something else I provide. So if you want more information, check out my website, capettidavid.com. And otherwise, hopefully you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you on the next one.